Okay, folks, it is 6:35 p.m. on Monday, January 22nd, 2018, not 17. And I will call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Start with our usual three announcements. This meeting is being recorded by Cape Ann TV Access Corporation for future broadcast. The meeting is being filmed by volunteers from Cape Ann TV. Meeting is being taped by by Finance Committee Secretary Gail Hunter for accuracy in minutes. Anyone else who is recording the meeting is asked to notify the chair at this time. And then lastly, all members of the board and people in the audience are asked to turn off or silence their cell phones at this time. Okay, before we get to the agenda, does anybody have anything that is not on the agenda tonight that they want to make a comment on? Okay.
Sorry. It's this one.
Thanks. So first up, we're going to have a recognition for retired call firefighters. And we are hoping to have a few more of our ranks this year from this last year. But so tonight we have Mike Capoli here. Mike, could you come on up? So welcome, and we want to give some recognition to call firefighters who served the town for years, and you've served 6, I think you said? Yeah. And I think it's, we want to express our appreciation for the work that you did for the town over the years. Mike was a call firefighter with us for over 6 years and retired in October of 2017. I wonder if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you did besides being a call firefighter, and what brought you into the business of being a call firefighter.
Well, I started my career in the fire service down in Pennsylvania when I was at seminary. I joined the local volunteer fire department there, and I then chose to move my law practice up to Manchester by the Sea because I wanted to get on the call department here. That was back when Chief Pascalis was at the helm, and I did get on. He asked me at that time to become an EMT, and I enjoyed my years, and as they went on, ended up becoming a paramedic and serving the town both as a firefighter and as a paramedic. I was also a career firefighter for a short period of time as well. But I've moved out of town and down to the other Cape. So living in Harwichport, building a house down there. My boyfriend Jonathan Richardson is here with me this evening, and Mr. Chief's here. I'm sure you'll call him up as well. But it was truly an honor to serve this community. Loved serving the community, and it was an honor to work with the guys, both the career and the call firefighters. Mr. Kehoe was a co-call firefighter of mine for a few years. We overlapped, so it was a great time. I used to really enjoy my time around the firehouse. My law office, my first law office was up at 48 Central Street, and then I moved down to 11 Beach Street. So wherever I was, you could always find me running up when the whistle went off to the fire department. But I used to enjoy planting flowers out front and being involved with the raffle there every year, and designing T-shirts and hats, which were never right for everyone. They were always just a little bit shade off, or they didn't say things the right way. But that was fun. I was on the Seaside Firemen's Association as the secretary for many years there, and overall, just can't say how much I enjoyed the relationships I made, the friendships I made with some of the guys there. And I was also in the movie, which is a lot of people get a big kick out of it. So I looked really, really bad in the movie. It looked like I did not know how to operate a stretcher. And for the record, I do know how to operate a stretcher. The director actually looped a bunch of those cuts of us, Tommy Aldrich and I, trying to get the stretcher together. He actually looped them, so it made us look worse than we even were. So I'm just glad to get that on the record. But I thank our current chief. I guess I served under Chief Kremlinger, Interim Chief Beardsley, Chief Rogers. Who was the interim chief between Pascalis and Rogers? Chief
Bob
Loomer, yeah.
Loomer.
Yeah, Bob Loomer, interim chief Bob Loomer, and Chief Pascalis, who hired me initially. And so all great guys who have the town's best interest at heart, I know, and as do our current career in call firefighters. And just one more time, I'm really blessed, honored to have worked with these guys, and the town is really lucky. You've got a great fire department. You've got guys over there who really care about the town and the people in this town. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, again, thank you for your service, and we're glad that you could make it up tonight and tell us a little bit about your time here.
I've got mine.
You got,
Okay, yeah. Yep.
oh,
there we go.
yes,
Thank
you got
Yep.
yours. How did that happen?
Muffin passed it over.
Okay. Okay. We will move on to our FY19 budget discussion at this point. So, Greg, shall we go over the discussion from FinCom, some of the details of the discussion from FinCom on Wednesday?
Right, so the Finance Committee is hoping that you will be able to attend their meeting on the 7th of February, at which time they would like to present their recommendations, at least to the extent that they have them formalized. They are focusing on a few areas of the budget. Certainly one is public safety staffing, both in the police and fire departments. And also, they'll be taking a deeper look at capital. They haven't completed that exercise, but they have started done on that. They have some concerns about moving the ambulance purchase up early. But that's a discussion that needs to take place. The fourth area that they would like to spend some time on is certainly the question of regional services and how we might best move forward on exploring those options in the future. So those are the four areas that they've identified so far as their priority areas that they want to discuss with you. In terms of police, they are of a mind at this point to recommend not funding the, what would be the 12th officer position, if you will. So Officer Miola, as you know, has been out on injured on duty leave and has a disability that will not allow him to come back. And the department has been functioning without his services, even though his services are missed, obviously, but nonetheless, the department has not suffered measurably from having that 12th officer not in the ranks. So from their perspective, they feel that this would be an opportunity then to remove that funding. Chief Conley feels that indeed, if no expansion of services are desired, then he's okay with that. His preference, however, would be to keep that slot funded with the hopes of working with the school and moving towards having a school resource officer, SRO. Those discussions with the school have not advanced to the point of getting to a yes, but those discussions he is hopeful will be able to take place in the coming year. Right now, obviously, the school is struggling with a fairly significant funding gap, so they're not in a position to put money towards an SRO. They're dealing primarily with a health insurance crunch that is preventing them from funding some of their other programming. So before they look at new programming, they need to get that under control. So that, in a few sentences, is the discussion on the police side. So on the
Greg,
fires.
Is it,
Yeah.
is, just before we leave the police, should we leave some money in the budget in case the officer's disability case is not finalized by June 30th? I don't know whether in other words, is there a way that you could fund it? I mean, we could always we could always amend the amount if we found out that the case was ended or taken care of prior to April 1st,
Right.
at the town meeting, but we need
So
to
I would
have, we need to
suggest-
have something there,
I would
right?
have some cushion there, whether you put it in the reserve fund or you leave some of those dollars, say a quarter of the year, in the police budget as a contingency in case that case is not settled. Our hope and expectation is that it gets settled by the end of June, but it's been a long and slow process.
If we didn't leave it in the budget, then we'd have to do a reserve fund transfer in the middle of the year.
Correct. Right. So, like I say, it'd be good to have some dollars set aside in one of those two places, either boost the reserve amount or keep
Right.
keep a percentage of those dollars in the police salary line.
Okay.
Can you make a caveat that, or in the budgetary agreement, can you make a caveat that money would only be used for that position and to cover that position until the final decision is made on the disability? In other words, if it gets put into the salary account, I'd prefer, to cover that position, I'd prefer it not to go someplace else.
Right, I think Chief Conley would honor that request. And with me and Andrea monitoring that, I would have full confidence that that's what would happen.
I think it's important to note that the Finance Committee was intrigued by that SRO position and appeared supportive of it. They just felt like, why be holding on to the money for it when it's still in its discussion stages, so that it sounded as though they'd be willing to entertain it next year.
Yeah, I think that's
And
accurate.
I thought that was a little bit different from how they felt in the past. Once something's out, it's gone, that's it, we're not gonna put it back in. So they did feel, they did seem anyway, sitting and listening, that
Right.
they were.
And that actually
Interested
becomes,
in that.
oh, sorry, that actually becomes a three-way decision because it's the town of Manchester, the town of Essex, and the regional school committee for a school resource officer.
If they have to add the budget, to the budget to do it, yes.
Yeah.
If they used something out of their existing budget to do it, then no. But that's not likely. Okay. I'm comfortable personally with going through the exercise of actively adding back to get the SRO position.
Yeah, traditionally, it's not how we have operated. If we've taken something out, it's pretty much it's a given and an understood that we're not adding it back. So I just thought it was
Yep.
an interesting part of the conversation, that there's support for it, but why leave it in the budget now? Or why try to get something in the budget now if it's not something that's gonna happen in the next budget
Yep.
year?
Okay. And on the fire side?
Ed Cushing, are you here for the selectmen's meeting or for the planning board? Oh, okay, okay, I just didn't know, because
Well,
welcome, I just didn't, I saw people going to the other meeting, and I didn't. You're always welcome.
Okay. And on the fire side?
So on Fireside, you've had numerous discussions during the fall, certainly as part of the contract negotiations concerning adding a 13th career firefighter as what we call a floater position to help fill in leave time for the other 12 career officers. Part of what's driving this has been the reduction in the call force, going from a couple dozen call firefighters down to a handful or less at this point. So that has an impact on how quickly we can muster a crew and respond to emergencies. The proposal in the preliminary budget contains that 13th floater in the budget. The budget was adjusted, less overtime and less call people pay as those numbers are reduced. So the net effect isn't the full amount of a salary and benefits, but nonetheless, it is an increase. It's about a $42,000 increase, if I'm remembering my number correctly, as a net number. A lot of that is benefits driven as well. So the idea was that, at least as a stopgap measure, that gets us the crew in order to respond to the ambulance calls, particularly if there's a back-to-back ambulance call, and then if there's a structure fire, having at least 4 on to respond to that call, which is the minimum. There's concern from some that this becomes a permanent and is the beginning of continuing to escalate the number of career firefighters. That indeed, if we need 4 on all the time, are we looking at needing to bolster the ranks to 16? It's hard to look into the crystal ball to provide guarantees that that won't happen, but that is not the intent. My feeling is that we need to go forward with the 13th at this time. I would like to pursue fairly aggressively regional options. I think we do need a new model. I don't think small towns can really afford to put on 16, carry 16 in order to have 4 on 24/7. But for us to buy some time before we can get there, I think it would be prudent for us to have that 13th career person. I think there's some hesitation on the finance committee's level to go that route. We do spend more than our peers. When you look at our sister communities, we are ahead of the curve in terms of number of career people already. So there are some who look at other communities who are doing it for much less to say, why can't we? So we may be a little bit ahead in terms of the demise of the call force. I think that trend is happening, both neighboring communities and nationwide. It's dynamic, comprised of many components. Part of it is much more stringent training requirements. The days of just grabbing an able-bodied person and say, here, help out, those days are gone in terms of our litigious society. You want to make sure you have people trained. And so that aspect of it, to people's lives and most people now not working in town, they're commuting elsewhere for work. And it just seems like lives are busier and there's less time for community service all around. So that's in some ways unfortunate, and it's hard to let go of that. But I think it's the reality we are confronted with. But having said that, I do think it makes sense to be as creative and aggressive as we can in talking to our neighbors about different options. So I would see a two-pronged approach. One is going forward for now for the floater, but with the ultimate goal of trying to create a new model where we partner with neighboring communities.
So this is something that this board had a lot of conversations about over the preceding months. And personally, I don't see that anything in our conclusions, from my perspective, really changed, or there's nothing really come up to change what I understood coming out of our discussions, which was pretty much exactly what you just summarized. We are recognizing that we have some challenges on the staffing side. The town has an ALS service, which is Advanced Life Saving Services, which are highly valued by the residents, and we need to maintain that service. And so the conclusion last time we talked as a board on this was that we should add the 13th firefighter and, as you said, start a more focused effort on looking at regional solutions where appropriate to see if we could solve some of our long-term staffing issues through a combination of our local staffing plus regional services. So I understand the Finance Committee's concerns, but I'm not sure that anything that's been discussed has really changed where we came out the last time we talked about this. And we did talk about it for over a period of several meetings. Any comments from anybody else on the board right now?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I probably, well, when I went on the call force in 1973, I was number 30 on the call department. So now that means there were 29 people on the department before I was as a call man. So by the time I had reached the top of the pile as the senior call man, sometimes I would be there, especially during the day, I would be waiting at the station with my gear on and the door open, ready to take engine 4 to back up the ladder truck, and waiting for, sometimes a minute, sometimes 5 minutes until someone came there. And it's even more drastic at this present time. So I would think it would be best if the board, just as we did in the contract negotiations, support the idea of a floater for the 13th firefighter, full-time firefighter.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have concerns about the safety of the current employees and the safety for those that are being responded to get some help. So it's fair to say that the community values the service that they're very used to getting. And I think the floater position will help us continue that service, with the caveat that we need to look very deeply into what Plan B becomes to sustain the service.
Arthur?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in the midst of a shift in the operations of fire, and I think we need to as Muffin said, I think we need to make sure that the right services are being delivered. What I don't think, what concerns me far more is the lack of a strategy for fire. I see a lot of attention and detail and expertise being applied to the operations here and now. And I really do believe we have an excellent fire service in town. As I've said many, many times, I'm not a fire expert. I think the man over there is the best person in town to deliver those services. But given that I'm not a fire expert, when I look at the town budget, what I do know a fair amount about is when spending is at a very high, hot rate, and just, you know, over the course of 3 years, our public safety bucket in general, which is not specific to fire but includes fire, is up nearly 15%. And that's a growth of costs that I just don't see how the town can support. As much as we want all of these sophisticated advanced services, which I love as much as anybody, I just don't think the town's made money. And I don't see how we're gonna sustain this. So as a complement to, you know, putting in place what we need to put in place for the here and now, I care a lot more about where the heck this is going as a town, because the numbers don't point to a sustainable model. So I don't think it's a question of whether we should regionalize. I think it's a question of when, and the sooner the better, because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I think we all are at the point where we've talked a lot about what we don't feel will work, or ways we don't feel it'll work. Now it's time to really make a determination of how it is going to work moving forward.
So the message back to FinCom is what we originally said, namely that we want to add the 13th to give us time to press on the regionalization, and that we need to focus efforts on finding the path for the fire department while we are supporting them with this, what we hope will be a temporary add to our immediate full-time employee set. So, I think we also want to talk about ambulance. Although, we may take a break. Well, no, if we can we spend 5 minutes on the ambulance side of things right now?
So we have two ambulances. We have one that's roughly 7 years old and one that's 18 or 19 years old. So the 18-plus-year-old one is obviously quite old, and it continues to run into repair problems and maintenance issues. It is of such an age that it's hard to get replacement parts for it. Not that you can't get it fabricated, but that just takes more time and costs more money to do. So the chief in the capital budget request asked that we move up. It was slated in next year in the 2020 budget to be replaced, whereas his request is to bring that up a year, to have it in the 19 budget, which is before you. And I think the cost has come down a bit. I think originally we were at 300, then it was put in at 270, and I think now the figure is 260, if I'm correct.
New or used?
Was that,
New or used?
that's new. That would be a new rig.
Do we explore used?
You could explore used. it's a challenge to get a good deal on one. If the frontline rig was newer, I could see that as having more merit. But it's time to put the frontline one and put it as the backup.
What's the current depreciation rate on a new one?
So in terms of their lifespan? So typically you would run them frontline for 7 to 8 years and then have them as a reserve for a similar amount. So a 14 to 16-year life. So, you know, 300,000 over 15 years. A little, obviously less than that, but it's gonna cost more to replace it. But one of the problems with the rigs we have, they're based on more of a van chassis, and whereas the new ones would be recommended that you go to an F-350, pickup truck chassis, which has higher clearance and has four-wheel drive, which is a big plus in getting to some of the homes in town. Having said all this, I think, yes, there'll be costs in delaying a year in terms of maintenance, but with the question of how we go on a regional basis, delaying this, putting it into the 2020 budget rather than next year's and limping by one more year, I don't think it would be the end of the world.
Are there leasing options?
There are potential leasing. Usually it's a lease-to-own option, typically. Basically, you're financing the purchase of it. So your year-to-year costs are better. Your ultimate cost is a little higher because you're financing it.
As I look at the capital budget in the back of the book, FY '18, we had $250,000 into the fire engine account or fire engine fund. And did the town vote additional money to go in there for the squad that we're getting at the present moment? And then this year we're at 520, then it goes down to 250 and then back up to 500,000 in FY '21. Does that mean, is that plans for another ambulance to be purchased at that point?
No, so it's, so it fluctuates a lot, you can see over the years. And it's putting in, ideally we'd be putting in a steady state amount. We're not there yet. And depending on what else is happening in the capital budget, I take money away from that, but then try to make it up for in the following year or years. So I think in 18, we did not put money into the fund per se because it was all used for the new squad.
So the fund right now sits at around 250?
I'm sorry?
So what's the current amount in the fire engine fund?
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up. Do you know, Chief?
If I'm not mistaken, it's about 170. And I might add that the squad was paid for without tapping into that. That was just a line item.
Right, that was that 250 that we had allocated.
That was 250 for the squad. That was component of that fund.
So doing this now would require that we push another 100 in and drain the fire engine fund to zero.
Well, so this budget is showing a total of 520 into the fund. and 260 of that would be taken out for the ambulance.
Hmm.
So it would grow the fund for future vehicle purchases while still funding the new ambulance.
Can we get, I think we probably asked for this before, but I don't remember seeing it. Can we get a 5-year roadmap for all the fire department?
Yeah, we do have that. The chief put
Yeah.
together, I think it's a 20-year roadmap, actually,
Yeah,
that shows replacements of all the vehicles.
all right, so I would like to
See that?
see that
Mm.
before we make a decision on
Yeah, that
how
should have
to
gotten into these packages, but it
proceed on that.
got left out.
I think, I feel to some extent like I'm a little bit behind on seeing the future for the fire department's capital equipment. I know we had some surprises in maintenance over last year, and that's when we asked for a better roadmap. So I can see as a scenario in which I would support this, but right now, I don't have enough information to do that, and I need to see how it would fit into the 5 and 10-year capital plan. I'd feel a little bit naked going back to Finance Committee and saying, yes, I support this right now, without that.
We meet again on, the calendar's gone.
Yeah, we need a new calendar.
So.
February
we-
5th, I think.
Right, February 5th,
Yeah.
because then we meet with the finance committee on the 7th.
Seventh.
So we
So,
could make our
We'll
determination
make sure you have
on the
that
5th.
before then.
Yep.
Awesome.
okay. Any other information that people want for the 5th on this topic?
That would be helpful.
Okay, anything else you want to cover on that budget item tonight?
I think those are the three most pressing.
Okay. You had a handout for us on DPW. Is that going to be part of a subsequent conversation?
It's a replacement for the sheet.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Just a
Yeah,
straight.
it's just an
replacement.
updated
Yep.
version.
All righty, so we don't have to chat about that. So unless we have anything else for the budget discussion, I'm going to move on to electronic voting. Yes, no?
Mhm.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Come on up. So,
Business cards on the floor.
I will butcher your name, Nimet. That part's easy. So, when you're talking, probably it would be a good idea if you use one of the microphones. It will amplify your voice, but it'll also record your voice for our TV cameras.
Thank you.
So some of us have heard your presentation before, but if you could give a brief overview of what you're about and
Thank you.
how you were hoping to engage our town.
Thank you for having me here again. My name is Nimit. I'm one of the co-founders at Votes. Votes is a small startup company based in Boston. Our focus is to make voting secure and at the same time more convenient using smartphones and tablets. So one of the first areas where we are rolling out the platform is for town meeting voting in Massachusetts. The platform also supports other subsidiary functions like voter check-in, audits, reporting, and it's built on a very secure security paradigm, which essentially ensures secret ballot when you need it, very high performance, military-grade security, and at the same time gives users the convenience of voting with a handset or a smartphone. The platform is also accessible, so has a high level of ADA compliance, so it's very easy for people to use. The other benefit is you as a town don't need to invest in any capital infrastructure. For example, clickers. A lot of people, more than 75% of people in the state have smartphones, which we support. So if we kind of correlate that to town meeting members, probably come close to that. And then for people who don't have a phone or don't want to use a phone, we provide these tablets. So as part of the contract, you can get a whole bunch of these included. And this ensures people who don't have a phone or are not comfortable using it yet can still participate and vote. These are available in two modes. One as a kiosk, which is like fixed, put them along the aisles for people who can just stand up. And then they're also available in a smaller format, which you can pass along to people as they're sitting. So the process, how it works is really simple. As voters or citizens come in, you kind of check them in and hand everybody a ticket like this. And essentially, then you scan it on the tablet or a phone, and it checks you in. So it's really, really easy. And then as you start going through your minutes and various articles, and if you want to put one to vote, you activate that from the admin terminal. The votes get activated, and people have time to vote, varying from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, whatever the town moderator wants the time set to be. And the voting process is really easy as well, so it's very similar. You scan your ticket, and the ballots will show up. So we have a sample ballot for town meeting voting. It's a straight up yes, no. Just, sorry. You can add abstain or other choices as well, and just hit the vote button. And it's done. And the process on the handsets is really similar as well. So you can do this on an iPhone and an Android device as well. You log in. And once you scan the QR code, your ballots will show up. Town meeting ballot. So it's really quick and easy.
So how do you load the app onto your phone?
So you can get that from the App Store, so the Apple App Store and the Google App Store. And what we typically do is, because it's a new platform, people may have apprehensions, we come ahead of time and we'll do kind of mock events, make sure people download the app, are comfortable using it, vote in a, like a poll or an early event
So they wouldn't just be downloading the app
on
the
the day
night
of the
of
meeting.
town meeting?
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be some people who show up, and we usually have a team in place, so they'll be there to cover those people. But the vast majority of attendees would have the app, and for people who don't, we have anywhere from 50 to 100 tablets available and spare smartphones if somebody ends up not having a phone at the last minute or something else going bad. And then on the security side, before we deploy the platform, we do a full site sweep. We check your wireless network, if it's safe enough. If not, we actually bring our own wireless equipment to make sure the network is really, really safe and can't be broken into, hacked into, or disrupted. And worst case scenario, somebody cuts the cables. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We also have satellite internet backup. So there's a 3-tier backup to make sure that the system is very resilient and can survive a whole bunch of threats and attacks.
Do you operate your own data center, or is this operating in the cloud?
It's in a cloud. we also have our own server, so it's a 3-tier setup.
Who's your carrier?
So our primary is Microsoft Azure. Then we have backup running on Amazon AWS. And then we have a 3rd tier running on IBM, and our own set of servers running another data center in Canada. So we have, depending on where the election or the vote is happening, we kind of keep shifting and making sure at least 3-tier backup is always available
So 3 of the 4 are operating
all the time. Yeah.
with every event.
Excuse me.
Is there any other community in the Commonwealth that has used it?
Not on a paid contract yet. Because we are a new company, we've been piloting, but this year we are in the procurement process with a few towns, and we should be able to announce that publicly later this year. We've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years making sure the technology is bulletproof. So we initially deployed it with universities, so Tufts University for student government elections, then political parties, so both the Massachusetts Democratic Party and the Massachusetts Republican Party use our system for the internal elections, committee voting, and also their state convention. So if you're planning to attend the state convention this year in April and June, you'll see a platform being used for floor voting where 5,000 to 10,000 people will be voting, both using tablets and phones. In addition, we also have a bunch of labor unions using it, Lynn Teachers Union, couple of unions in Vermont School Boards Association, and churches as well, Episcopal Diocese of Boston, which was a very interesting demographic because more than 90% of the voters were age 65 and above, and they had zero problems using the system, because that was one of our concerns. How would the elderly demographic adopt the system? And they really love the touchscreen interface.
Yeah, that would be one of my concerns. I'm glad to hear that you've thought about that, because there's no doubt that unless there's a particular issue that brings in the younger voting clientele, the same people sit in the same seats every year at town meeting, and the only difference is they're a year older. So, but it's nice to see them all there. But yeah, the demographic of people coming to town meeting in terms of age is I think increasing all the time. So you said you have no users for town meetings yet. When you find out about some users that might be using that, I am sure that our moderator and our town clerk, who is here this evening, would love to be able to communicate with those moderators and those town clerks and find out how easy it was and how successful the use of your facility, your app is.
Sure, we're happy to invite you. The same time, if we kind of request you to be one of the first to give it a try, we are offering the platform at no charge for your first meeting. And in addition, we are also offering the platform as a means to do polling. So you can get people to download the app, start without even waiting for the town meeting, pose questions on hot button issues for the town. That way, you get an early sense of how many people have adopted. We'll be able to share data with you, how many residents have adopted, how many residents have voted once or more. And that way, that'll be an early signal for you. And I'd love for a chance to trial the platform, do a mock vote, maybe the evening prior to your meeting, even the day of the meeting, if you're comfortable with that. Our goal is to roll this across 200 plus towns in the state. So we're very confident that it will satisfy your requirements and also not only improve the process, maybe save you a couple of hours per meeting, but also get more people to participate, especially younger people.
I see this as having a tremendous opportunity for someone like Ms. Beckman and Mr. Russell on the master planning committee in terms of polling people, just so it's not just the yes, no, abstain type of voting. We have just started electronic voting and have done it at 2 annuals. And, yeah,
One special.
and 1 special at the present moment. Our schedule for this year has an annual in April, which, unless something we don't know comes up to the forefront, will probably be about the average number of participants in the 4 1/4 range. But our special in the fall possibly might double that, since it's a school funding approval meeting, basically.
School building project.
I have more than a lot of questions about giving a brand-new platform to people for the biggest town meeting we might have had in, it's not, don't take this negatively, it's just like when you start something new, I always thought that, you know, you take baby steps before you learn to walk, and then before you learn to run, and it's kind of like starting in the middle of a 1-mile sprint if you have 800 people there, and that's just my feeling.
That's why I think there's potentially more interest in the very near term in the polling and the master planning side, especially if it gets people more familiar with the platform. And that might be, I really wish Susan was here tonight, but she couldn't be. That might be, I think it's, if we went down this route, it would be critical, most likely place for us to start. And the need for that would actually be fairly soon, I think. Christine, you had a question?
Are there any safeguards in the town meeting function to have somebody come in, check in, participate for half the meeting, have to go home, but then have a family member tell them, well, the big vote's coming up, can they vote from home?
So these QR codes which check you in, they're actually geocoded. So if you leave so when we do the site sweep, we actually program it to your longitude, latitude. So if you leave the hall, it will stop working. So you will not be able to do it from home.
Unless you happen to live directly across the street from the school.
No, actually,
The only 2 people that
Not
would be
even that.
okay with that.
I think
Even then, it's accurate up to 5 meters. So we can
Oh,
boost
okay.
it with Bluetooth sensors. If you do have people like that, we'll set up a couple of sensors and that'll make sure.
What detail is there from an information dissemination standpoint within the app? Can you learn about questions
Absolutely.
within the app?
So I can show you an example here. So you'll see next to the choices, there's this exclamation mark.
Yep.
Essentially, that's the manifesto or the detailed page where you can
Got it.
put a lot of
So
information.
for Susan's standpoint, if we were to disseminate it and people weren't familiar with some of the background on some of the questions, that'd be great to.
So next to the
Have.
choice, there's an option here where you can put pictures, text, videos, any other information, like a full manifesto if it's a candidate or any article, so people get to learn the pros and the cons before they actually vote.
And do you have the ability to turn on and off the geo restrictions so that, for example, you could disable the actual voting ability, but people at home could actually see the questions and hit the icons and learn about it with no ability to actually influence the vote and only be able to vote on it when the geo restrictions are applied at the time of voting?
Absolutely,
You can do that.
yeah, can do that.
So if we wanted to disseminate the ballot before the vote, people who had the app could actually, up to a week before,
Just view it.
be flipping through the questions and seeing all of the decision factors and.
And you can also publish the results. They'll be able to see the results as well once it's open, once it's closed.
And you also support ranked choice voting.
Absolutely, yeah. So the
Support what?
So ranked choice voting, what are the other words for it?
single transferable vote, or so
That-
essentially, instead of doing a plurality ballot where you pick one out of X, you can rank your choices as a first preference, second preference. So the church election we did a few weeks ago actually did a ranked choice ballot. And a bunch of cities actually use it: Cambridge, Minneapolis, Oakland. So it's fairly popular in city council elections.
And can you drill down? So if you choose A, you do a follow-on question specific to A, which allows you to choose A1, A2, A3,
Yeah, we call that conditional ballots. Yeah.
if then.
Yeah, so you can create a conditional ballot based on the answer which a voter
that'd be great for
provides.
Season 2.
So for surveys, that would be really, really ideal, because I think a lot of times you get this false information with the surveys, because it doesn't give you enough choices to really express what you want. So you answer something, but then if somebody comes back to you later on and asks you questions about what you really wanted, you're like, well, I only said that I wanted that because I hated everything else much more. And
Yeah. Yeah, we try and make sure the questions are not leading and kind of, make sure you get more logical responses. And sort of coming back to your earlier question, we support the baby steps. So if you like, we're happy to be here once or twice a month till your next town meeting, do tabling, do demos, getting people to do mock ballots, fun stuff. What's your favorite chocolate or candy or ice cream, even at the library. So anything we can do to make it comfortable. We love to have an excuse to come to Manchester in Boston. So definitely anyone in our team wouldn't mind being here a couple of times a month. And the other thing I would like to add is the cost. So I know you're using clickers. Our cost is at least 50% cheaper based on the info we have from the other towns, and in many cases even more. Plus, you don't have to worry about batteries, recharging, them not working, wireless interference. I don't know if you've noticed, if there's a town meeting member with a hearing aid, your clickers may not work because the wireless frequency actually interferes with the frequency used by the clickers. So you would not have that problem with our system. It's cheaper, better, faster.
okay,
So, sorry.
yep, go ahead.
So the number that I've seen is that it would basically cost us about $5,000 a year to use the technology.
Correct.
Okay, and there must be a personnel number on top of that because, or is there? Because, for example, if we were to go for a regular town meeting, you might supply us with 3 people or 4 people, but a big school funding town meeting, you might have to supply us with 8 or 10 people. So there's a personnel add-on on top of that fee.
It's actually included. You don't have to pay. Up to 10 people, 50 tablets, those are included at no charge. We actually have a team of volunteers. All they do is support these elections there. Some of them are students, some of them are political activists from both sides of the spectrum. So they actually volunteer their time. So we can get 10 people. For the conventions, we actually have 40 people in our volunteer group because there was thousands of people over there. But for your town meeting, given you may have up to 500 to 1,000 people, probably 10 to 15 volunteers would suffice. So we're happy to bring them. If you have more on your side, we can train them as well. So there's no extra cost. If you want 50 volunteers, then we'd probably request a little extra charge. But 10 to 15 is fine.
Thank you.
And programming it, is it something we have to send you the ballot input, or do we set it up?
Yeah, so that would be the easiest if you can just send us the questions in an email or an Excel sheet. We can also train you to do it, so you can do it through a simple website. We're also coming up with a speech recognition. I don't know if you're familiar with the Alexa and the Google Homes. So as long as your question is simple, you can actually use voice to program the ballots as well. But that's a little experimental, but definitely email and website you can do. And we'd be happy to do it for you. There's no extra charge for that.
Well, so I guess what I'd really like to do is, personally, I'd really like to connect up the master planning group and see if there's something that we could get going there, to see if there's a good near-term use that would help validate this for us and get our toes wet.
Sure.
Any other questions or thoughts on this from other board members?
No, I'd be interested to see what Susan and a couple of the other master planning committee think of the app, and if they feel that it's cost sensitive to what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Because I'm skeptical of rolling it out in any near future for town meetings. I just don't think I'm not there yet for a town meeting, but I could be there on a polling platform as a means to be gathering information, or another vehicle to gather information from people in the community.
So, how would you, we should just have the discussion, but is that an engagement that you guys would be interested in regardless? I mean,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, I think that's really where we should start, is we should hook up Sue Brown and Sue Beckman and crew with you guys, and see if we could, if there's a reasonable use case for this in the near future. Because they have a bunch of surveys that they've already put out, but they have more to do in the next couple of months, I think.
Would the school committee have any use for it, being crossing two towns?
Well, actually, that's a really good point. I don't suppose you've talked to anybody on our school committee, have you?
Not for Manchester yet.
Huh. Well, the reason I mention it, I don't want to step into their territory too much, but they are in the middle of doing the lead up to a school building project. And I think it might be a little bit late to engage on that, but I don't know. It might be worth.
Yeah, I think if you could do it in the next month, it'd be pretty timely.
Yeah, it might, because the people there are going to be easy adopters.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, we don't need a lot of lead time, just a couple of weeks, so we can be pretty quick and agile if you think that would be a good first step. Happy to do that.
So I will send an email to the school committee and connect you guys. I'll do that tonight or tomorrow.
So if you have my email.
I do, but I'll take it. Any questions from anybody out there on this? That we just since you're here, nope. Okay. All right. Well, I think unless y'all have any other questions.
That was very helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And would you like us to do any kind of mock events before your town meeting, just a day before, just to show people, do a test ballot, something like that?
I'm pretty sure that the place where we'd want to go at this would be either well, I think we should talk to the school committee, but I'm pretty sure it's the place where we should go out there is through the master planning process, because the timelines are actually pretty good for that. The intent was to have a significant chunk of the master plan phase 2 done right before our town meeting. And there's still quite a bit of community engagement that I think they want to do on that. So I think that might be the, yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
okay. On our consent agenda. So I'm going to take the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes out because we got them very late and Susan's not here, so, and I don't have feedback from her on that. Left in the in the consent agenda is the certificate of appointment for the town clerk. So, if you would like to
I'll move.
authorize the hiring of the person that we
I'll
just...
move that we have authorized the chairman to sign the certificate of appointment to the town clerk.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Correspondence, we have a FEMA letter with an update to the flood insurance maps. I will tell everybody that it means basically there is no change to anybody's insurance because of this map changes is a pro forma change. There is a DEP letter for flow monitoring post I&I. This is administrative consent order. This is the one for the updated reporting on our I&I. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just a request for us to do some additional reporting.
Yeah.
And then we had a request from, I guess, an amateur videographer who had done some video and was offering to put something on our webpage if we wanted to. So if anybody has interest in that, if you take a look at it, you can email Greg and we'll see if there's anything that we want to pursue there.
Detailing master plan,
Hmm?
is that an opportunity to actually put some color behind some of the master plan ideas? I'll talk to Greg about it.
Yeah, it might be.
Actually bring it to life a little bit,
It's a good suggestion.
every once in a while.
Okay. Town administrators report.
Just, Greg, can I ask a question on the DEP letter? That we have done some of the survey on the Harbor Loop, correct?
Yes,
Just that they don't have,
correct.
they don't have that information is what they're looking for.
Right. The consultants did convey it verbally. This is a little heavy-handed on their part, but nonetheless, we'll get it to them. They just were covering their
Yeah.
Okay.
their
All right.
process
All right.
and just making sure that we will get it to them. And it's in the works.
Okay. Town administrators report.
So I think the last time we met, we had talked about some of the concerns at the Charter House. We do have a good game plan going forward. What we are haggling over right now is the cost of that. So our team feels that the costs are not that exorbitant. Contractor has put some inflated numbers on the table, but I think we will work that down to a reasonable number. But I don't have that for you yet. My hope is that it's in that $50,000 range.
And will all of this slow down the process of having it ready?
Shouldn't.
Okay.
So the timeline still should be able to be met, to have it all ready by the middle of May.
Okay.
So that's, that target date is well known by all, so,
Especially the first renter.
Yeah,
And it's unusable at this point, or no?
unusable, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all torn up.
Okay.
There's no floor. The flooring is gone. So, so I'm optimistic they'll come to terms here. We just need another week to pull that together, and the work should then proceed fairly quickly from there. So provided some staffing updates. Obviously, you know that Christina has started, which is great. We'll be conducting interviews for 4 finalists for the DPW director position a week from today, next Monday. I know that Muffin, I think you're trying to,
Oh, yeah, I replied to Deb, I'm good to go that day.
okay. I didn't know if,
Thank you.
So I could do half of it, but not the second half. Not safely. If it runs all the way to 4, I'll be pressed.
it will,
Yeah.
it will.
So do you want me in there for, or would you, is it not particularly helpful because then you have, you know,
So it's really not fair to the afternoon folks.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I may stop in anyway just to,
Certainly
Observe.
welcome to observe, and we can always then bring back, you know, if we want a second round, we can always bring them back for final interviews.
Yep.
And then as indicated here, we'll be losing Debbie. She'll be moving on to a new position in a different town. So it gives us an opportunity to take a step back and think about that position. We've had some early discussions during my review in particular. People were talking about different ideas. So, don't know if you have some thoughts you want to share right now, or just think about it and get back next week. So she'll be leaving us actually a little earlier than this indicated, in the middle of February. And so we'll be advertising that, actually, we'll probably start advertising tomorrow, but we can tailor that as we go forward, in terms of, you know, specific skill sets that we're looking for.
Will she be here long enough to get the annual report together?
That's
That's the one
that's a
thing.
key goal, yes.
That.
And she has started on that and has, there's quite a few of the reports in already.
Be real difficult for someone to pick that up at the
Correct.
3/4
Well,
post.
and realistically, by the time someone starts, it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
what's your backfill plan? And it's desirable not to rush, right? Just because we have to. What's the backfilling plan if we haven't got that sorted out by the time?
So I would
she-
talk to a couple of people in-house to see if they would shift over to help with this. And if that, I suspect that'll be successful. If it were not, then we can certainly look at a temporary agent, see to bring somebody in. And so there's permeations of the theme there. You know, we could do a mix and matching as we might need to.
Okay.
Just one question, when I note that Carol's last day is listed as April 1st, and our town meeting is April 2nd. Is it wise for us to consider holding Carol over until the town meeting is over, since she has worked with you to develop the budget and has a real overall understanding of what the, the projects that are going on and things like that? Not that
Right.
you don't, but I just think that,
It's helpful
I
to
think
have that
she just
additional
has that,
expertise there.
yeah, she's got the DPW director for the last,
Right. I'm confident she would stay for town meeting.
I think that would be important.
So any other thoughts at this point? Let me know as you think of them. So that'll be an ongoing discussion. Just an update at the water plant, we were able to get those frozen sprinkler pipes out before they thawed and created other problems, so that was very good news. And a replacement system is in the works, and insurance is stepping forward once again and being quite cooperative and helpful in this process. We are moving forward with a different fluoridation system rather than the liquid fluoride going to a solid, a powder actually, which will be a safer process all around. So that's underway. And then for some very good news, we have been awarded a $500,000 grant for work on the Central Street Bridge and Culvert. So part of the small bridge program that the state has. We submitted application, this is our second round, and they awarded us that $500,000, which is a tremendous help in moving that project forward. So that'll boost up the engineering on that, get that underway in earnest. And I don't have a set timeline yet in terms of when that project might go to construction. We're probably a year from this spring, would be my guess.
That still involves this, so the design work, during the design work, that's when the decision will be made about the disposition of the culvert for
The dam.
open or not open, right?
Yeah, the gate, the tidal gate.
Yeah.
Right. So that, ideally, yes, it's not essential. That decision could be made later. Obviously, it's better to make it at the same time. But it is independent in the sense that it could be removed at a later date.
There's also, I remember that there were, we know there'll be plenty of time to discuss this, but there are some opportunities, depending on how that bridge gets reworked, to help out the parking down in that end of town
Yes,
a little
make it
bit.
a little wider,
Mhm.
yes. Yeah, with sidewalk and parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll all be part of that design process.
I think it's important to note in that grant, the assistance we had from,
Just-
not only to the grant writer, but the assistance of our two legislators, Bruce and
Absolutely.
Brad.
Yep.
They,
Yep, they continue to really,
they were big in that one.
yes, they were.
They knew who to go pester.
Yeah, they continue to be very, very helpful. And
Yeah.
It's a great partnership to have.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. So there's an award ceremony, the Lieutenant Governor will be hosting the communities that have been awarded grants. It's this Thursday afternoon in the bustling town of Hubbardston,
Where?
which is just north of Worcester,
Oh, God.
about a little over an hour from here.
Okay.
Um,
What time?
So that's at 3:00.
Yeah.
So I am planning on going, but my schedule is a little
Yeah,
shaky
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
So it would be helpful if any of you are able to do that. I know it's a bit of a drive.
Well, Thursday, 3 p.m.
So she's gonna award them all.
Yes. Yes.
What town did you say?
Hubbardston.
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 So yeah, definitely kudos to Brad and Bruce, also to Carol Murray for
Right?
working
The
on
whole
this.
process, yeah.
So it's a good team effort all around.
Tell you what, I will volunteer to be the representative of that as needed.
All right, thank you.
If I can,
Yeah, I'll keep you posted,
yeah.
I appreciate that. And that'll do me for this evening.
Greg, can I ask one question? Where are we on streetlight demonstrations?
So we just got the information from the audit back from the firm that's helping us with this. And with that, they gave us, half dozen vendors to start looking at. And then once we pick one of those vendors, then they will bring in some of their sample lighting. So we're probably 6 weeks out. would be my guess.
There's a voting tool item.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
that'd be a
really.
good poll.
Yeah,
really.
really, actually, yes.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you know?
Yeah, you think about it, there's probably lots of things like that that would be handy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very timely. Okay. Hang on. So that was it for you? Anything else from you guys? Adele?
I may have missed this though, because I don't always hear all that Greg is saying. But did he comment about the fact that we, in Manchester, thanks to the police action of going around and checking the license plates of the cars that were sitting in the lot before the surge, they got almost all of them out of here as a result of calling up the people, telling them to come and get their cars. I believe that you only had 2 cars that were underwater.
Unfortunately, 10.
What?
Unfortunately, 10 cars.
Oh, 10, well, that's better than 70 in
It's better than
Gloucester,
70.
for sure.
It is.
I thought that was very clever of the police, and I called the chief and told him so. But I think it should be also known that they did that, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, my
I didn't
understanding.
know whether you had mentioned it. I can't always hear you very well, but Greg.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I actually did want to comment on that. We are filling out the information on the state level, and they'll be submitted to FEMA. It's going to be hard to meet the thresholds. But nonetheless, it's still worth going through the process of collecting it. So we are asking people who, if they had damaged cars, to let us know what the value of that damage is, so that we can add it to the submittals that we will have.
There's my understanding that it started out as a king tide, basically, which we expected, and then it went from not flooded to fully flooded in the space of 15 minutes.
It did. We were speculating. I was talking to the chief the other day. There might have actually been a sort of a pseudo ice dam out there on the harbor that it was holding back the water, and then that gave, and that caused that
Just caused it.
really quick rush in, because it did come in extra fast. So something
It's
must
true
have,
everywhere, I believe. Gloucester the same. It happened
yeah.
enormously quickly.
So
Okay.
unfortunate for those folks who obviously had their cars ruined. That's not a fun thing to go through. We will, in the future, be mindful of any surges and block this off when we have that kind of warning.
All right, well, if nobody else has anything else they want to add to this meeting, do you?
I don't want to create a discussion, but I just think, back to Debbie, I don't know whether, Greg, you've given thought, almost along the lines of, I think, discussions with the fire chiefs about the fire department, like, for your office, do you have a vision of where your office is going? And that's not a pointed question, that's more like, you know, do you, given at the rate at which the town is growing and the complexity of things is advancing, do you, and I'm not asking you, you don't have to give me anything right now, but I'd be curious to know, from your perspective, in administering the town, have things changed relative to the role that you took on and the office that you've been managing? I guess it's more just a question I would leave with you.
No, it's a good question. And, we started some of those conversations, back in the fall, and I think it's worth picking up on some of those themes. Certainly, the complexity of compliance with state and federal regs has grown significantly. We've done well with grants over the last few years, but there are others that we could be going after if we had additional
Right.
firepower to do that. So I do think about an assistant who could take on those kind of tasks, and I think it would probably be beneficial for us. So how best to structure that is something I'm still toying with, and will present to you some ideas, but I also welcome your own on it as well.
Because earlier you had talked a little bit about finding someone or setting up a process in our discussion that someone would take some of the day-to-day type of situations off your desk and be
Right,
able
so-
to handle those.
Right, so certainly, sort of constituent services, residents coming in and wanting to see me about X, Y, or Z. That can take up a lot of time. Though that's important, and we need to provide that service, but it doesn't necessarily have to be me. And a lot of personnel things that come up. Resolving some conflicts or between staff or department head and a department head, that sort of thing. Again, I think we might look at other models where someone else is doing some of that. It certainly strikes me that the more time that I can spend on the long-range planning and anticipating where things need to go and tracking trends, those are the things that always get pushed off to the side because of the immediate crisis of the day. So the better we can set ourselves up to allow me to do those type of things, I think the better we'll be positioned. So that's a short answer to your thought.
On a completely separate note, I just thought about this. Do we have any citizen petition articles?
No, not that I've seen yet. I'm anticipating one on the marijuana.
We are still, okay. But you haven't heard of any others?
No, I have not.
Because if we have them, we need to build them into one of the meetings.
And the only other article I know that's out there is that the Conservation Commission wants to pursue a different version of the aesthetic criteria
Oh, okay.
for
Okay.
wetland protection.
So will we get them on an agenda?
Yes, sooner rather than
Sooner
later.
versus the
Yes.
last one in March?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And just thinking about the recreational marijuana, there is another listening session this Saturday at the community center from 9 o'clock until 10:30. And Christine Delicio and Deb Bradley and I will be there to listen to see what people have to say. I did receive one letter from Town Hall today that someone sent along that people who could not come. And for people who are interested, remember at the last meeting, we did listen to some information on the Veterans Memorial. This Thursday night is the Historic District Commission meeting on the Veterans Memorial at 7 o'clock. If you,
Is it in? Where
it's,
does he say?
I'll have to look.
I'll look, I can look.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?